It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I am your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman, and this portion of the show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com, get an autographed copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator. But also, too, if you suspect your spouse or your wife, your husband's cheating on you, you give us their email address, and we trace it back to online dating websites, and we catch them cheating online. That's emailrevealer.com. Okay. I got a real treat. I tell you, I've been in a good mood all day long thinking about this show. I grew up, I can remember it like it's yesterday. I was about the 7th grade, and we went to school the next day, and everybody at school was talking about the same thing. Happy Days, the TV show Happy Days. This incredible, delightful show that brought us back to a more innocent time. We were living in the 70s, but it brought us back to the 50s. And here we are now, in 2017, and we look back at the 70s as an innocent time. God forbid. But we got with us Donny Most. And I tell you, he's going to be appearing at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. He's a singer now. And he's got this CD out called D Most, Mostly Swinging. And I've been listening to these, his producer, his publicist, sent me over a couple of MP3s. And it's this old big band kind of stuff, this old swinging music. Donny, are you there?
I am indeed, Ed. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And it's so weird because when I had met Marina right about a month ago, and it was right around that time, I was watching, I guess, the Johnny Carson show, the big band, you know? And I says, where is this stuff, man? Where's Buddy Rich? Where's Frank Sinatra? Where's this kind of music nowadays? And I just listened to these MP3s she sent me, and I got to tell you, man, I really enjoy it.
Oh, thanks. That music is something I've loved my whole life, and I actually started out before I was really into the acting scene. I started out pursuing singing. I was pretty young, and I was singing some of these great standards, and the music from a golden era of songwriting, I think, the 30s and 40s and 50s. And I was doing it in the Catskill Mountains when I was 15 years old, singing as part of a review. And I knew, after I kind of put the music aside after I got into acting in a bigger way, and knowing that one day I would return to it. I don't know why I waited this long, but I started about 3 years ago. And I said, if I'm ever going to do this, now's the time to do this music, because it started coming, it's been coming back into favor. I know what you're saying is this particular sound, like you mentioned Buddy Rich, I was a huge Buddy Rich fan, and the big band scene, and of course watching Carson and with Doc Severinsen leading that band, they were incredible, and I loved seeing Sinatra and my particular and all those greats, and Bobby Darin I got to see at the Copacabana in New York when I was 18, with his with a big band, and oh my God, it's just such an exciting sound, and the music, the melodies, the lyrics, I just love it, and so I'm just having a ball getting back to my roots, so to speak.
Yeah, and you really pull it off. I'm glad you mentioned Sinatra, because you sound like Sinatra. You sound like Sinatra if he had never smoked. You know what I mean? And you got a smoke.
I guess in his early, in the 50s, in early 40s, 50s, he sounded great then. It was in those later years that it got a little rougher around the edges, But you listen to his recordings in the 40s, 50s, and early 60s. He still sounds great. But thank you. That's such a great I mean, I'm honored and incredibly feel complimented that to even be mentioned that way.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
No, you got a Sinatra quality, and also like with a smile. You know, like there's like a smile to it. You know, behind the music.
Yeah.
See, yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, I just because I get high as a kite doing it. You know, it's just incredible. Doing it live and then getting a chance to do it in the studio. And having these some great LA jazz musicians in that band, and my producer Willie Murillo wrote those arrangements that he and I talked about them a lot, and he did an amazing job. Because to me, though, you know, that's so much a part of it, and that's what I think you and other people respond to sometimes without knowing. Oh, well, this arrangement is, you know, I mean, they're so important in bringing a certain feel and excitement, and sometimes complexity, but done in a way that it's just so infectious, you know. And there's a real art to that. So I'm real happy with the way you know, the band sounds and those arrangements, and I worked hard at making sure my vocals were up to the challenge.
Yeah, the CD is excellent, and I'm going to be playing right after the interview because I don't have the technical skills to play it during the interview.
Okay.
I know. But I'll pull it off for you. Right? Blue Skies I'm going to be playing, and I Got It Bad, and I got another one too, but I didn't write it down. Great stuff, man. And now, what do you think it is that people don't want to pay the band? They don't want to pay for that big giant orchestra and pay for their plane tickets and stuff.
Yeah. You know, that is a big part of why that it's difficult to do it these days. The economics of it. Yeah, I mean, 17-piece band, you know, it gets expensive. I've done it live a few times, but, you know, it's hard to make that work economically.
Yeah.
But I'm working towards that. I'm hoping, you know, sometimes I'll do it with a 7 or 8-piece band, and you could still get a great sound, or 10 pieces. You know, ideally, you want that 17 for a lot of this kind of some of these songs. Not all. I mean, I do some where you could do it with just a rhythm section, and it'll sound good there. Some I do with just the piano or just the guitar. But I do have a lot of that, as the CD says, mostly swinging, and most of it is that just exciting, driving kind of big band sound, and with these great standards that are wonder. They're standards because they've stood the test of time. These songs, you know, they're 80, 90 years old, a lot of them, and they're still being recorded by so many people. I'm glad to be part of that right now.
Yeah, so people can check that out June 12th at the Mohegan Sun up there in Connecticut. And that's a beautiful resort, too. They got a great golf course up there. And D-Most.
Yeah,
Mostly Swinging.
Yeah, they
you can
do.
get them on Amazon and iTunes. D-Most, Mostly Swinging.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm looking forward to the Mohegan Sun. I got to perform there last year, and it is a beautiful resort, and the casinos. That whole area it was done so well, and I really enjoyed it last time, and I'm looking forward to going back there.
You know, it's funny. I was reading your IMDb page, and talking to you now, I can hear it. You grew up in Flatbush, Brooklyn.
That's right. I did. Some, you know, people usually they'll say, "Oh, yeah, I can detect a little bit of a." You know, maybe an East Coast. They can't quite place it because I don't have a strong Brooklyn accent, but it'll come out, you know, a little bit here and there, a little bit. And what happened was I had more of an accent, but when I first went out to L.A., I was about 20, and, you know, I'd been pursuing acting. After that summer that I was singing, I started really pursuing the acting thing when I was about 16. And when I got out to L.A., you know, there were some casting directors when I went on auditions that were saying, "Oh, that was great reading, but can you lose the accent?" And, you know, it was like I didn't think I had a big accent, but they could hear it, you know. Yeah. So I remember I got all sort of paranoid. Oh, if I'm going to have the ability to play a wide range of roles, you don't want to be limited where it has to be someone who, you know, is from New York or, you know, where you're pinned down. So I started working with a dialect coach, you know, to try to be able to speak without the accent. So I worked on that, and living out in California over time, it dissipated. But yeah, it'll still creep in there. I guess you picked up on it.
Yeah, well, it's a little, because now I was looking for it. And with that red hair, you can't be typecast as a New Yorker with that red hair and freckles, man, Now, do you have white hair now, or you have gray hair, or is it still red?
It's sort of in between a very, very, very light red and blonde. It's just gotten lighter and lighter. It's not quite white yet, but there's still a little bit of strawberry left in there.
Now, you went out to California 20 years old. You went by yourself, or your whole family moved?
No, I went out by myself.
Wow.
What happened was, after I was in college at the time, Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and I'd been, like I said, pursuing acting for about 4 years at that time, even longer when you think about the singing stuff I did, because I was taking acting back then too. Started when I was like 13, but I was doing a lot of commercials in the New York area, and I was commuting from Pennsylvania into the city for auditions and doing shooting. And then I decided to go out to L.A. Initially, it was just going to be for the summer after my junior year. And so I went out there. I didn't know anybody, but I registered for summer school at UCLA so that I'd have a place so I could stay at the dorm and then, have a base. And then I started going around, and from some of the contacts I had in New York, I was able to meet some agents, and and one of them wanted to sign me, or several did. I was lucky, and I got to get with a good agent, and then they got me out on auditions, and I started getting some parts, guest starring roles. So I at the end of the summer, the agent said, you've got some real momentum going. You should think about continuing. I mean, you could take 6 months off and see how things go from 6 months off from school. So I did. Instead of going back, I said, okay, let me see what happens for the next 6 months, and then I can go back. But then, I kept continuing to get some more parts, and then eventually led to the Happy Days. So that's, it wasn't like I said, okay, I'm moving out to California by myself. I did it sort of incrementally. I went out there what I thought was going to be for the summer, and then things developed from there.
And what were you majoring in college?
I entered as an engineering major. Switched out to the business school after one semester. But you see, because I knew I really wanted to pursue acting and singing. But my parents were supportive. But as long as I still went to college, they thought it was, and they were smart, knowing how precarious the acting show business is and all that, and how unpredictable. So, they wanted me to have a foundation, a college education, and something that I could, fall back on. So, but I knew I wanted to do the acting. So, it was the kind of thing where, once I got into school and I saw that it was going to be tough for me to stay in as an engineering student, because my heart wasn't really in that, and that's not an easy thing to do. If I was not attending classes sometimes because I had auditions, and so I knew I probably wouldn't cut it as an engineering with a major in engineering.
Yeah, a different kind of mindset, an artist and an engineer, It's a different kind of left brain, right brain.
Yeah. It is a different part of the brain, I think.
And if you don't have your heart set, and you get a whole building collapse, if you don't do your engineering correctly, you can't have that.
That wouldn't be good.
No, so now when you hit it on Happy Days, like your whole world must have just exploded. How old were you when that hit? How old?
Well, I was 20 when we shot the pilot, and then within a couple of months we started shooting the series. It was sort of a minor hit that first season, but wasn't huge yet. But it was still pretty exciting. I mean, it was exciting, and things did change for me in a big way. But it wasn't until midway through the third season when the show really took off and shot up to #1, and then things really talk about being thrust into the twilight zone. Your world does just change dramatically. And I got a taste of it early on, but it was in that third season on that things got, up to a whole different level.
Did you ever go a little crazy, like drugs and, strippers and, like go?
I would, luckily, I never really went crazy. I didn't get into drugs. There was a period of time that I felt like I was, getting into drinking a little too much. That was the one place where, because of all the pressures and all the fact that your reality has changed so much, and they don't teach you how to deal with that in acting class. That's something that you don't have training for, and you're kind of just on your own figuring it out, and it's a lot. It was a lot. So it was. So there was a period when I said to myself, you know what? I think I'm starting to drink a little too much, and I really made a conscious effort to pull myself out. It's not like I was drinking crazy, but I could see where it could lead, So I had to be a little mindful and willful to make that change, and it was a good thing. But I never got into drugs and never got really crazy. A lot to incredible. My parents and family foundation that I think was very instrumental in keeping me grounded, and working with great people like Ron Howard, who was incredibly grounded and had been in the business since he was 3.5, and he was as grounded as you could. You can't even imagine that he could have been this way. But so he set a tremendous example to us and other people like Gary Marshall and our creator and Jerry Paris, our director. They were huge influences on us in a positive grounding way.
I never even considered that. That's right. You worked with Jerry Paris from the Dick Van Dyke Show. These guys legends.
Yeah, Jerry was a genius of a comedy genius director, and an incredible guy, and kind of a mentor of mine, and I had a wonderful relationship with him, and he was very smart. He'd been in the business, started out as an actor and then went into directing, so he was like a uncle almost to me and the rest of the cast, and Gary, coming from the Bronx, and he really had his feet on the ground, and we learned a lot from working with all of them.
What about because you saw what it did to you? How about kids on the set? I'm thinking of Erin Moran, just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Well,
it is for someone like that. What Erin had to go through. I was actually going to bring this up. I was already 20 when I started the show. So and had been through 3 years of college, growing up in Brooklyn, and going to public high school and a normal, very normal upbringing in life. But Erin was 13 when she started on that show. So you don't have, you haven't built up your identity yet of who you are in the world. At 20, you're a young adult already, and like I said, been through 3 years of college. But at 13, living through that, I can't even imagine. It's tough. That would be really tough. And I think it's hard on that's why they talk about child stars and how difficult it is for them. It is. That's why all the more remarkable about Ron, who went through that from a very early age, and how together he was. But he's sort of in the exception to that. Most of the times it's very, very tough.
Yeah, just imagine a 13-year-old girl. You're just starting to get all that male attention, which can be overwhelming to begin with. Imagine, being thrust onto the world stage. It could just, you know what? It's, hey.
Yeah, it's like there should be a separate course in abnormal psychology for this area of dealing with somebody being thrust into and dealing with fame and identity and all that. It's a unique sort of dynamic,
And what about you? Did you ever have kids?
Oh yeah, I've been married. I met my wife, Morgan, on the show. She was an actress and did a guest role on Happy Days. We started dating. 2 years later, we got married, and we just recently, a few months ago, celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary.
Oh, very nice.
And we have 2 daughters, 28 and 30, wonderful daughters, and so I'm blessed and really thank my lucky stars, because that's also a big part of helping stay grounded.
I was going to ask, I forget his name now, Chachi, right? What was his name in real life?
Scott.
Scott Baio, right? Now, he didn't turn out so well. He winds up on the Trump convention over there.
Well, Scott's a good guy, and I might have different opinions with him politically. Although when I saw him a couple of times, we just didn't even discuss politics.
Right.
We go too far back, and we had too good of a friendship. I figured it was best not to get into any of that. And but he's a good guy.
Oh, I'm sure he is, but it's just a shame the way he turned out.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a subjective
point
of view.
I know. Listen, when you're watching these hearings, I got the hearings on as we talk.
I know, me too. I have it on right now, and I figure, I'll catch up on it later. They'll be talking about it all day and all night, so we'll be able to catch up.
Yeah, we are living in interesting times,
Oh my gosh. I keep telling my wife, because I'm totally glued to the news all day, and and I'm like addicted and obsessed, and and she can't watch it as much as I. It just gets to be too much. And I said, but you know what? It's like this is history in front of us. I mean, this is totally. I don't want to say uncharted, because it's not totally uncharted, but it's big history happening right now, and it's riveting theater, that's for sure.
Yeah, I try and explain to my kid like this isn't normal. This isn't what things were like.
No.
Hey, and now what about, because I had May Pang on the show. Now John Lennon and May Pang visited the set. Now you met them that day?
Yeah.
Yeah,
this was back in 1974. It was so crazy. We were shooting an episode where I remember we had some scenes at Arnold's and Interior, and Anson Williams, who played Potsy, he went over to get a cup of coffee near the entrance, this door to the stage that we were on, and he comes back and he says, "This guy just came in with a young boy, and man, he looks just like John Lennon," and we're cracking up, going, "Yeah, right. John Lennon just came over to say hello." Well, like a couple minutes later, the guy walks over, and it was John Lennon, with Julian, who was like 9 at the time, 9 or 10, I think, and we were like in shock, and nobody not announced or cleared, or he just, I think Julian was a fan of the show already, and John loved the music of the 50s too, so maybe he was as well. I don't know, but they came, and he hung out on the set with us, watched the rehearsal, and he was very soft-spoken, low-key, as nice as can be, and just hung out with us for several hours. It was an amazing experience. So yeah, there's a picture that I have on my wall that I could see right now with. That's the picture I think you're referring to.
Yeah. Now, what do you do that night? Do you go home, or you like up all night, like you can't even get to sleep? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I probably, I don't exactly remember what I did that night, but I couldn't stop talking about it and telling everyone I knew. wild thing. It was surreal, It felt almost like I was dreaming it,
Amazing. Hey, now, what about everyone? The episode "Jump the Shark," right? Now, yeah. When that aired, did you have the same kind of reaction, like, "Oh boy, what's going on here?"
Well, what happened was that was, I think, in the 6th season. See, I wound up leaving the show.
Oh, did you?
After the 7th season, my contract was up, and Ron Howard and I, after that season, opted not to renew our contracts. Everyone else continued, and they did the show for another 4 years. But after the 7th season, Ron and I, he had his reasons, I had my reasons, and we didn't return it. And I had a bunch of reasons. And one of them being was that I felt that, we'd been doing it for that long, and I felt like it was getting a little stagnant, and it was getting repetitive, and it was getting. I just didn't think it was growing, and like it had been in those first 3, 4, 5 seasons, and I think indicative of that was like that particular episode, where they now relate to that as jumping when a show jumps the shark, when it starts to kind of turn the corner and go maybe downhill. I remembered thinking that the script was, the whole premise of it was suspect, and I had some qualms about it, and as I did with some of the other episodes in that time frame. So, and then later on, it's funny because then they, used that as an example of possibly the turning. That tipping point for a show.
Yeah. Well, or even in life, you use that expression so much now. Just when anything, like Fonzie wearing his leather jacket on water skis, jumping over the sharks.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of funny. I mean that was good, but it's tough for a show. After a certain amount usually they say after 5 years, it's very tough for a show to continue to keep up the freshness and the level of excellence that it might have been. It gets hard after 5 years, and I'd been doing it 7, and but it was an incredible, wonderful, amazing experience doing the show and working with all these people.
Yeah, everything in life, there's always burnout, Now, I was surprised. I was reading the Wikipedia page, okay, and this lawsuit where about the lunch boxes and stuff like that,
the merchandising. Yeah, the merchandising.
Yeah, what a man! They wanted to pay you $8,500.
I don't remember the figures that they. Well, what happened was they weren't paying us anything. I had never gotten a dime for any of the merchandising, which we had in our contract that we would get a certain percentage of anything that we appeared on, our face and all that they were selling as merchandise. And all through the years, we knew there were lunch boxes out and and I guess, I was 20 when I started, and I forgot about that merchandising clause and didn't know anything about it really, and I was just concentrating on the show. But after a certain amount of years, it was like, wait a minute, there's all this stuff out there. How come we haven't seen any money? And then we talked about it, but what are we going to do? And, I think, then what happened was then all these slot machines came out in casinos all over the country, Happy Days slot machines with our pictures. And that was sort of like, okay, that's the straw that broke the back because, I remember Marion Ross, here now they're putting her and Tom Bosley on these slot machines, and they never talked to us about it, and they've never paid us. So it was like, wait a minute, this has now gone too far. So that was what was the catalyst back then, and this was some years ago, and we eventually settled with CBS, who had taken over the all of those rights of Happy Days and all that it included. So it was time we had to do something about it, and we did, and then there was a settlement, and that's about all I really can talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Are they paying you now, though? Are they doing the right thing now?
Yeah, I mean now. So from that point forward, they they agreed that they would be paying whatever royalties we were due from this, continuing. So that was a good resolution too.
It's just amazing, these big billion-dollar companies. They're so rich. And here you made them rich. You made them rich. You made them richer. And,
Yeah.
Anything we can do to squeeze another nickel out of this thing.
Yeah. Or they say, oh, it was oversight, and
right,
who knows?
Right. Oversight in your pocket. I don't know oversight in my pocket ever, right? We're from Brooklyn, man. We know. All right. Let's. Donny Most. He's going to be where is this thing here? June 12th, Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. And you can get his CD, D-Most, Mostly Swing. And I really do recommend it. I'm going to be playing a couple of songs right after the show. You can get it on Amazon
Wonderful.
and iTunes and stuff like that. Great stuff. What do you want to leave us with?
Oh, I don't know. Just I'm excited about the music very much, but I certainly don't want to intend to step away from acting and directing. I've directed 3 independent films over the years, and I've got some exciting projects I'm trying to get going now to direct, and I want to act in a big way in all kinds of roles, that are different and challenging and exciting. So I did a psychological thriller that came out in the fall called Follow, a very different role, and it really I saw it kind of reignited my love of acting, and so I'm looking to do that again in a big way, as well as the music. So that's, I'll leave you with Keep Swinging, musically, good. In the musical sense.
Well, I tell you, you're exposed to the greatest directors of our time, so I mean, I can't imagine how it hasn't rubbed off on you,
Yeah, you do learn, by osmosis, and I worked with some great directors, and Ron Howard, and being one of them, obviously, and a lot of other great, like Jerry, we talked about, and Jonathan Demme, who in the very first movie I did, it was a small film called Crazy Mama that Jonathan Demme directed, who went on to direct Silence of the Lambs and Philadelphia,
really?
And on and on. So, who just passed away several months ago. I'm very privileged to work with some great directors, and I learned a lot, and I enjoyed directing the films that I've done, and really look forward to doing more on that level as well.
Well, I can't tell you what a treat this was for me. Like when I was watching Happy Days 50 years ago, what was it? God knows, 40 years ago. I never in my life dreamed
it premiered 40-something years ago, yeah.
Yeah, I never in my life dreamed that one day I'd be talking to you. So I can't tell you what a treat this has been for me. So thank you so much. And anything you ever want to promote, give me a call. I'll put you right on the air.
All
right, there, Donny Most from Happy Days. And I'm not kidding around. I wasn't just saying this to be nice to Donny Most. That I was playing his songs this week. Blue skies coming at you. Really cool stuff. And I got it bad. It's great stuff, man, with those big bands. I really dug it. And hip, cool stuff. Okay? So it's D-Most, D-Most. It's not a rap album. It's a big band, mostly swinging. And you can find that on Amazon and iTunes. I'm going to play a couple of songs after the show here. And when this goes up on YouTube and stuff like that. But he's going to be June 12th at the Mohegan Sun. Tell him Ed Opperman from the Opperman Report sent you there, Donny Most. And we'll get him back. I'll ask him some more questions. I forgot all about that he worked with Jerry Paris. And who's that guy? I forget the guy. I'm getting old. All right, guys. Thank you. If you enjoyed the show, too, don't forget OppermanReport.com, member section. Become a member, blah, blah, blah.
Blue skies do I see, blue sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right. Noticing the days hurrying by, when you're in love, my, how they fly. Blue days, all of them gone, nothing but blue skies from now. Nothing but blue skies do I see. Bluebirds singing a song. Nothing but bluebirds all day long. I never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right. Noticing the days hurrying by, when you're in love, my, how they fly. Blue days, all of them gone, nothing but blue skies from now on, from now on, from now on. Those blue skies.
Okay, that was Donny Most. You remember from Happy Days. You can find his website, DonnyMost.com, singing Blue Skies. You know, I got to tell you, it's so funny because right before I booked him, I was just saying how you don't hear enough of those big bands, you know, and then along comes Donny Most. Anyway, you can catch him live at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut on June 12th. And his website is DonnyMost.com. And if you want to get his CD, D Most, Mostly Swinging, I'm going to make it easy for you. I'll put a link up on my Facebook page, on the Opperman Report Facebook page, and also too at OppermanReport.com in the, the bookstore. By the way, too, you know, if you go to Facebook, you know, a lot of people don't know this. You can go to Opperman Report on Facebook and like the Opperman Report Facebook page. And I update it all the time with upcoming shows and all kind of wonderful things on there for you. You'll love it. Okay. All right. I'm going to be playing a couple of more Donny Most songs, too, this evening. A couple of things I forgot to ask him about. There's a lot of, you know, one thing was that it was going so well, I didn't want to go off the rails. But Erin Moran one time, who played Joni, one time they asked her, how come you didn't go back and do a reunion? And she said something like, all those people are the devil. All those people are the devil. So I don't know what was going on in Erin Moran's head. Or, you know, maybe she has some good information, who knows what. But there was also, I saw another interview with her, too, one time where she was talking about how she lived. And this is way before she was still young. As a matter of fact, when she was still young, on that show, she was dating a cop, a grown man, you know. When she was like 17, 18 years old, she was dating a grown man, like 35 years old, who was a motorcycle cop. And then she went out to live out in the desert, where she said all her neighbors were meth labs. All the other houses in her neighborhood were meth labs. So a lot of funny, you know, tragic stuff in Erin Moran's life. And I remember, too, seeing her on one of those weight loss shows, like The Biggest Loser or something like that. And Celebrity Loser, you know, Celebrity Losing Weights. And, you know, she wasn't participating in any of the stuff. And I said, well, why'd you come here? She says, well, because I need the money. I need the money so bad. So Donny Most, really enjoyed it. A couple of things I wanted to ask him about Happy Days. I'm sure I can get him back anytime I want. I got his phone number, and we got along very good, both on the air and off the air. But Pinky Tuscadero, do you remember Pinky Tuscadero, who went on there for one season? And she was supposed to have a reoccurring role as Fonzie's girlfriend. And she was on it for one season, and she was supposed to go on the next season, too. And they even had her in the promos for the following season. But she couldn't get along with the cast, and she couldn't get along with the crew. So they dumped her from the show. And she had a fascinating life following Happy Days as well. Where I think she was arrested. She had a couple of arrests. One, I believe, was for attempted murder. And one was for stalking her neighbor. She got out on the attempted murder charge and then had a neighbor stalking charges. I'm surprised I didn't run into her as a client. And then Susie Quattro. Remember, Susie Quattro from, she was this punk rocker, She was, I forget her. Yeah, she was Susie Tuscadero on the show. But in real life, Susie Quattro was on there, too. Fascinating stuff there. She was with Kim Foley and the Runaways and all those characters and stuff like that. I was saying, too, about how Donny Most, how he sounded like, if you listen to the songs, I'm going to be playing another one in a minute. I was saying how he sounded so much like Frank Sinatra before Frank started to smoke. And, Frank toward the end, the smoking and the drinking got to his voice. But it's an interesting thing because when Frank Sinatra was at his peak of fame, and all the Rat Pack and stuff like that, they were always drinking. They always had a drink in their hand. And Frank Sinatra, one of the drinks that he made famous was Jack Daniels. And before, Jack Daniels wasn't a commonly known alcoholic beverage back in those days. It wasn't like a name brand until Frank Sinatra started drinking it on stage. Before that, it wasn't. Okay, it was just like an average Scotch whiskey that people, didn't think too highly of until they started seeing Frank drink it. And then it became like this super popular drink. And a little tidbit I'll throw you there. Okay. Couple of things that I just confirmed that I'm very, very excited about is next week, not tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to have Nico House coming on talking about Seth Rich again and all that stuff we talked about last week. The D.C. lawsuit, Seth Rich, the district attorney, the federal prosecutor down there in Miami that was found dead on the beach, washed up in the water. And who's the other one? Sean Lucas. Okay, we're going to be discussing all that in the D.C. lawsuit because Nico House is the paralegal in that case. But we're also going to be talking about his feud with the Young Turks. Because they got into this. I don't know why they chose Nico out of the whole world to go after him, but they went after Nico and some of his friends, and he got into a little war with the Young Turks. And so we're going to be giving him a platform to talk about that, too. And Nico House, I don't know if it's all officially announced yet, but what the hell? Who cares, right? Nico is going to be hosting a show. I loved having Nico on Awake and People's Internet Radio and all this stuff, but he had to move his schedule. So he's going to be hosting a show now on Saturdays, pretty much right before me, I think, on Saturdays on American Freedom Radio, coming up probably next week. So that's very exciting. Now, next week on American Freedom Radio, I got a huge show. We have this guy, Anthony Mioli, and he's written a book, Diary of the DC Sniper. And this is breaking news, guys, okay? This is about that guy, Malvo, one of the DC snipers, the teenage one, okay? Not the John Muhammad, but the youngster. Now, Anthony Mioli got a hold. He's been corresponding back and forth with this kid for 7 years. Anthony Mioli has a copy of his diary that this kid's been writing in prison for 7 years. Anthony Mioli and myself have possession of a 20-minute long audio tape of Malvo in prison confessing to an additional 30 murders. And he pins Muhammad with another 70 murders. You're hearing this first anywhere in the world. The police don't know about this. The prosecutor, the parole board doesn't know about this. Malvo just went up for a sentencing review. They don't know about this. We have this. No one else has it. So you can hear this. Although he's going to be on the Discovery Channel this week, but even they may not be playing this. They may not be aware of what we have. So that's coming up next week, next Saturday. What is that date? Let me tell that for you. The 17th. Anthony Mioli. His book is Interview with the DC Sniper and Diary of the DC Sniper. Then it gets even more interesting. The week after that, on a Saturday. Okay, so I'm booking my shows out weeks ahead. And you know what? I usually don't like to do that then because people start harassing my guests. But both of these two are really hard to get a hold of. So, I know that all you amateur hosts out there who try and steal all my guests, you're going to have trouble finding these two. Okay, private investigator Stephen Sanzeri. He's a bounty hunter, a private investigator, all the usual stuff. He's written this book called Ultimate Prey, the true story of the Yosemite Sightseer murders. The true story behind the Yosemite Sightseer. Well, kind of redundant there. Okay, but that's the book. Okay, and it's available on Kindle on Amazon. I got the link up on my Facebook page. You can find it there. It'll be on all the other places as well. You remember the story, I Know My Name is Stephen? Okay, about Stephen Strainer. He was abducted, held for about 10 years. And then they made him abduct another little kid, this little boy named White. And then he took the little boy into the police station. He turned himself in with the little boy. And then he went back to his family. But, it was 10 years later, and he was smoking, he was drinking. He never quite fit in. Then he died in a car accident, a motorcycle accident. And then his brother becomes this Yosemite sightseer murders. He was working at this hotel up in Yosemite Park, and he killed these sightseers. There is so much more to this story than you have no idea. First of all, the guy who wrote the book, I Know My Name is Stephen, this guy was like a pedophile hunter. He had been infiltrated an Ambler. This guy winds up in jail, dies in jail for public exposure, public nudity. It's a flasher. Okay? So who knows what he was up to. But he had a really wacky reputation online of fighting with people and exposing people and doing all this kind of wacky stuff. Stalker type. So we got that. Then Carrie Strainer was living with his uncle. He didn't live with his own parents, he lived with his uncle. His uncle gets murdered. And he says that his uncle was molesting him when he was 11 years old. The same year that Stephen got kidnapped, his uncle just happened to be molesting him too. And Carrie Strainer was such a strange character that he confessed to these serial killings, these murders in Yosemite Park. He says, I'll confess to the murders if you give me some child pornography to look at, and then I'll confess. So there's a lot going on here with this bunch and this family and the uncle and the writer of the book and all the marijuana dealing. There's child pornography dealing. There's meth dealing. All kinds of shenanigans going up there. Really interesting, too, that this character, Parnell, who abducted Stephen Strainer, also worked at Yosemite Park. Okay? There's way more going on here, guys. And even since this book came out, this book by Stephen Sanzeri, even after this book came out, there's new elements going on in this case. Okay, so everybody who's been looking at this case and saying, hey, man, this thing looks fishy, you're right, it's fishy. And we got Stephen Sanzeri coming on the show to give us up, because he's a private investigator who actually investigated this case. Coming up right after this Donny Most segment, I have an interesting segment with Jim Poorman Trenton. Tonight's going to be a light, entertaining show. So if you have to have all kind of Satanism and conspiracies and death and murder and gore, politics, this isn't the night for you. We got a fun show with Donny Most. Got a fun show with Jim Poorman Trenton. Jim Poorman Trenton's the guy behind Loveline. He was partners with Dr. Drew. Then he had a falling out with Dr. Drew, and he said, Dr. Drew was using coke. He ratted out Dr. Drew all over the place. So we have him coming on next after this next song by Donny Most. I really enjoyed my segment with Jim Poorman Trenton. But hold your hat, because toward the end of it gets a little raw and funky there when we start discussing Jim's sex life toward the end of the show. So if you can't handle that, you're warned now. Okay, there's not too much adult content in there, but it is a little frisky with Jim Poorman Trenton, who's a radio legend, by the way, at K-Rock in California. Was on there for years and years and years, doing all kind of shenanigans. Okay, so coming up next, we're going to be playing another Donny Most song, and then we'll get with the Jim Poorman Trenton.
Never treats me sweet and gentle the way she should. I got it bad, and that ain't good. poor heart is sentimental, not made of wood. I've got it bad and that ain't good. And when the weekend's over and Monday rolls around, I end up like I start out, just crying my heart out. Doesn't love me like I love her, nobody could. I got it bad and that ain't good. Like a lonely weeping willow who is lost in the wood, I got it bad and that ain't good. And the things I tell my pillow, no, nobody should. I got it bad, and that ain't good. Though folks with good intentions, they tell me to save up my tears, I'm glad I'm mad about her. I can't live without her. Lord above, make her love me the way that she should. I got it bad and that ain't good. I got it bad and that ain't good. I got it bad and that ain't good.
And now a word from our sponsors. Did you know that 30% of all people on online dating websites and personal ads are either married or in a monogamous relationship? 30%. If you suspect that your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend may be cheating online, go to emailrevealer.com. On our online infidelity investigation. You give us their email address, and we could trace it back to online personal ads, dating sites, and social networks. We can even expand the investigation and find them cheating on escort service sites or even porn sites if they're registered to porn sites and swinger sites. So check out emailrevealer.com if you suspect your spouse is cheating, and check out our online infidelity investigation. William Ramsey is a producer here at the Poorman Report, and he's just come out with a new book, Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. Now, he just sent me a copy of this book. Oh boy, it's about 2 inches thick, and there's a chapter on just about everybody in this book that you can imagine. The Beatles, and Jack Parsons, everybody's in here. It's incredible. And I definitely recommend this book. There's a bunch of pictures in here, too, of all these people and different chapters and information. Anselm LaVey and people I've never heard of, too. There's a whole bunch in here. JFC Fuller. I don't know who he is. But it's great stuff by our producer here, William Ramsey. So check out Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. You can find it on Amazon.com, or you could find it in the Poorman Report.com bookstore. We have an urgent bulletin. It seems that the group Strawman is still on the loose. It has been confirmed that Strawman are Canadian. okay? And that authorities are asking people to stay indoors, lock your doors and windows until this group can be dealt with. You could find more information about this group of Canadians, at strawmanmusic.com. You can have your ad played here. Okay, we're looking for sponsors. Okay, in fact, we desperately need sponsors right now to take this show to the next level. So you can have your your ad played here, read live, like I'm doing now, so artfully. Or we can even work up a little jingle for you with some music and stuff like that and play it here. You have no idea how inexpensive it would be to have your ad played on the Opperman Report on 7 stations live Friday night and another 7 stations live on Saturday night, plus replayed every day of the week on different stations, and then archived on YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and all different kinds of podcasts, Pod This and Podbean, all different kinds of places who archive the show for us. And on those archives, your ad would play indefinitely, forever. You also get a little banner on OppermanReport.com. You get a mention on the air, you get a little interview on the air, and all kinds of fun stuff if you sponsor Opperman Report. We have an opportunity to get this show on a major AM/FM station in California. We've been approved. So if you want to sponsor us into that, so incredibly inexpensive that your ad would be heard by the range covers 5 million people in population where your ad would be broadcast, and all these other stations would be thrown in for free. So really affordable prices to sponsor OppermanReport.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You can get a copy of that book at emailrevealer.com, or you can get a copy of that book now. It's back up on Amazon.com. How to Become a Successful Private Investigator by Ed Opperman. And this book has been updated a little bit from the previous book that we had that was available to our wonderful listeners.
Sleepless nights, daily fights, the quick toboggan when you reach the heights. I miss the kisses and I miss those bites. I wish I were in love again. The broken dates and the endless waits, lovely loving with a hateful hates, conversation with flying plates. I wish that I were in love again. No more care, no despair. I'm all there, but I'd rather be punch drunk. Believe me, sir, I much prefer the classic battle between a him and a her. I dislike quiet, and I wish that I were in love again. The furtive sigh, that amazing high, the words I'm gonna love you till the day that I die, the self-deception that believes the lie. I wish I were in love again. When love congeals, it soon reveals the faint aroma of performing seals, the double crossing of a pair of heels. I wish that I were in love again. Hey, no more strain, and I ain't feeling no pain. Today I'm sane, but I'd rather be punch drunk. Believe me, sir, I much prefer the classic battle between a him and a her. I can't stand quiet, and I wish that I were in love over again.
too.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by pscoco.com, pscocoa.com. Phoebe Sod is an independent curator with the Cocoa Exchange, which is formerly known as Dove Chocolate Discoveries. And they make the finest silky smooth chocolates because the products start with the best cocoa beans, which are tested for quality by expert technicians. The Cocoa Exchange offers not just premium chocolates, but anything from sauces and spices to brownie and cake mixes, and even coffee and martini mixes. If you wish to treat yourself or someone you love to a sweet and tasty gift, then the Cocoa Exchange is the brand for you. So you go to pscoco.com, and if you want to buy some chocolate, you can go in there right now tonight. You can click on the Shop Now button. You can place your order. It comes in a refrigerated box, which you can reuse. You go fishing or something like that, you reuse the box. It'll be there at your mailbox by Monday morning. Or if you want to get into the cocoa business, Phoebe Sod can put you in a cocoa business and get your own website. You can throw those cocoa parties, those chocolate parties, like what they do with the Tupperware parties, same kind of thing, but you have chocolate with all your friends. And they have these sampler packs. Great product. pscoco.com. Okay. Today we got something special for you. We have Jim Poorman Trenton, who's kind of a legend in radio. Started out in K-Rock.
In my own mind.
By the way, you got to check out Jim Poorman. If you want to have a good time, become a Facebook follower of Jim Poorman. Okay, or he got a Twitter too. I'm not on his Twitter, but his Twitter is @Poorman1. But his Facebook page, when he gets off on a rant, there's nothing like Jim Poorman when he's in rare form. It's true, man.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. It's like depresses any possible future job I ever may get, and but you just reach a point eventually where you realize you're not going to get one no matter what you do. So you might as well just do whatever you're going to do.
You do seem to sabotage yourself a bit, don't you think?
Well, yeah, but you know what? Here's the deal, Ed. And by the way, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
And I'm getting hungry listening to that cocoa thing. Maybe I should get set up with a website. That sounds good.
Go into the cocoa business.
Right, it sounds good. But you just reach a point. I think, at least in my case. I had a great career in radio. I've had a great career. I've been very fortunate to, work for, I guess, 4 or 5 big-time Los Angeles radio stations, and probably one of the only guys that's ever been fired when they were number 1 in the city overall. And yet, I get fired, and, I mean, it's not because I committed a felony or I shut up the radio station. I mean, I did nothing except take 300 listeners over to the morning man of K-Rock's front line at midnight, and which I thought was totally fine, and I got fired for that. But, it's just weird how society works these days. You have to be so politically correct, and, then you have social media on top of that, and you got to think about that. And so, in my case, I don't think that I will ever get hired for a big radio gig again, quite honestly. Even though I think I'm the best radio guy in the country, not because I'm the funniest, not because I'm the slickest on the air, but I think I have more creativity than anybody in the business. I just have an imagination for what can be done in radio, and that's sort of my gift, and at the same time, that's sort of, my curse. So,
well, you should be proud. You should be proud because you did create Loveline, which was huge. Why don't you describe how that whole thing came about, how you were the creator of Loveline?
Well, I mean, I was probably, this is back in the 80s. I mean, I was probably smoking a fatty or snorting a line or something, and I just popped in my head. You know, we used to, myself and Swedish Eagle, who was another DJ at K-Rock, we would talk about our screwed up love lives. And then at the time, I'd been given the morning show. I was going to do mornings on K-Rock after basically being at the station for a year. I immediately was a natural in radio, and I ascended from some guy doing a restaurant review to being the morning man. And it was obvious within a couple of months that I just had an ability in radio that like a natural ability. So I lasted 3 days with that morning show, Ramondo with the Poorman. And I'll never forget, I got the gig on a Friday night. We were doing an event at Old World in Huntington Beach. And Ramondo said, Evans was his partner, and Evans left K-Rock and went on the air and said he was going to see him Monday morning at KMET, and he left. And so Raymond picked me, and we celebrated in the back room on the stage at Old World by snorting a bunch of coke. And in my head, I thought, man, am I going to be ready for this? So I lasted 3 days on there, and then they replaced me with Richard Blade, who had a pretty good morning show career. And then down the road, he and I did a morning show together. But I, as a consolation, was given a midnight to 3 time slot to do whatever I wanted to do. And so Eagle and I would talk about our love lives, and somehow it came into my head to do, I said, why don't we do it on the air? Just a couple unqualified FM DJs talking about our screwed up love lives. And I said, let's call it Loveline. And that's how it happened. I can't tell you when or anything. There's a few friends of mine that said they were there when I thought of it, down in Newport Beach where I live. And so we went on the air on that Sunday midnight to 3 slot. And Ed, you do radio. Can you imagine, like, doing something at midnight on a Sunday night? You would think you'd get no calls at all, right? Even back before social media, would anybody want to call a radio station at midnight on a Sunday night?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it would be the lines would be dead.
Right, they weren't. We said, okay, listen, we give each other advice on our love lives. If you have a love problem, call us up, and this is Loveline. We're going to try this out. From the moment we first went on, for the entire history of my 10 years doing the show, those lines blazed nonstop. I kid you not. They exploded with people calling with love problems. It was a hit from the moment go. And that's how it happened. It was just people responded to it, especially the idea of getting love advice from a bunch of idiots like myself. I won't say Eagle, but, just unqualified people giving love advice on the radio was unheard of. Up till that time, the only way you could get advice was through a doctor. And that, in this case, it was 2 FM DJs, and I think the reason it worked is because when people have love problems, they call their friends for advice. And so we were like friendly DJs that everybody could relate to, and it was just like real life. And that's what made it such a genius show. So it was a hit from the moment go. It got huge ratings right out of the gate, and I've never created anything as good since. How can you?
What was it, mostly teenagers calling in?
Pardon me?
Was it mostly teenagers calling in?
No. I mean, it was the demographic of the station, certainly teenagers. I mean, the calls ranged from age 14 to probably late 20s or 30. Just everybody. I mean, everybody has love problems. So people would call in, we'd talk about it. It was funny. And it just was a huge hit. It was a massive hit. And it was only on one day a week for the first 7 or 8 years.
And then what kind of problems did they call up with?
Billy the masturbator had to jerk off 16 times a day. A party did the family dog.
Oh, wow.
Somebody said they were on acid and bit off somebody's penis. I mean, those are the most radical situations. Actually, one of the most radical ever was some guy called in and he was going to drink a bottle of Drano, and Phyllis Diller was the guest, who was a comedian at the time, she was on to promote whatever she was doing and make jokes. The next thing you knew, we were doing a suicide prevention live on the air to get this guy not to drink Drano. And Dr. Drew, we brought him on, by the way, a year into the show. I met him at a party, but he had to literally talk to this guy off the air not to commit suicide and call some sort of, ambulance or hospital to go over there and pick the guy up so he wouldn't kill himself. So there were some really heavy problems, but, there were simple ones too. Or, my boyfriend cheated on me. I can tell you something. I said I had nothing to promote.
Okay.
We may start up another love line, actually, on a LA radio station. That might happen in September. There's a really good chance that we're going to do it. A new millennial love line with it, when I would have a female doctor doing it with me, and so that's something that could come down and it'll be huge. She's really good. We've done a couple sample shows together. So there, you get the scoop on that, Ed. Nobody knows about it, but I think it's going to be big.
All right, we'll keep our eye out on for that. Now, legally, can you still use the name Loveline?
Probably not. I would do it just because I don't care. And what are they going to do? Just give you a cease and desist? But, it's an interesting question because Loveline went off the air. Dr. Drew ruined the show. It became all about him. His ego was the worst thing. He ruined a show that's unruinable. How can you screw up a show where all you got to do is ask, "What's your love problem?" And somebody goes, "Hey man, I got this thing that looks like cauliflower on my shaft," and I had sex with 10 women in an orgy and I didn't, the condom broke. What do you think? It's like, how can you ruin a show where you're talking about this crazy stuff? But it became all about him. What was the question again?
Could you legally use the name? Well, first of all, is there a love line on the air right now at all? It's totally off the air?
No. They took it off about a year ago. Can I legally use it? The fact that it's off the air, I probably could, just because nobody would care at this point. But if it became big, then CBS might allege that they owned it, or Entercom, the next station that's taking over K-Rock. But the truth is that I went to court and I lost in court. They said I was a work for hire, and they won on a summary judgment. So I think I'd have to just use a different name. But it's a great name. There's nothing that ever I've thought of that could be. How can you beat a name like Loveline? It's a great, catchy name, and but yet the formula underneath is magical. And in fact, I think this concept could take on the Johnny Carson format. Do you know what the Johnny Carson format is?
What's that?
Well, just plug in Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Steve Colbert, Conan O'Brien. They all do the same format. They do the Johnny Carson format. The late night television is so horrible because nobody's done anything original. Yes, they can all make their own little jokes, their own little vignettes. They all interview celebrities, but the concept is the same. If Loveline was a television show with celebrities talking about, have they ever, had an orgy or taken it up the ass or whatever, that concept could take down every one of these late night tired shows, in my opinion. That's what I would do. If I was going to do a late night show, I would put on the Loveline concept on TV. I think it would be a huge hit.
Yeah, I've gotten so tired. I don't think I've watched late night TV since Johnny Carson or since at least David Letterman. I couldn't even tell you these guys, Kimmel and Fallon. I couldn't even tell you what they're doing. I don't even pay attention to that at all. So now you started Loveline, and you're the one that pretty much discovered.
Yeah, I created it. Yeah. Yes.
And you discovered Dr. Drew.
Yes.
Was he ever on?
I discovered him.
Yeah, was he on media before this? Any TV or radio or anything before you found him?
No, he was an intern going to medical school at the Huntington Hospital, and a friend of mine said, "Why don't you?" He invited me to a party at his house, a couple blocks away from K-Rock. After I got off the air, I went to my friend's party, and I was literally, I said, "Can I use your shower? To clean up and everything before your party begins." I was literally naked in the shower. My friend comes into the bathroom and says, I want you to meet Drew Pinsky. He's a medical student, and maybe you can do something with him on the air. So I was naked in a shower when I met Dr. Drew, who at that time was a medical student. And in terms of doing something on the air, back then, this was like the early 80s, people that were going to medical school, they did not want their doctors or future doctors getting any publicity at all. So he was very close to being fired. But in fact, the first, I said, okay, because I trusted everybody. So we sort of hit it off right away. But I was nude when I met him.
Now, the Drew has turned into like this huge self-promoter. At one time he had like 5 different shows on. Life Changers, radio shows, 24 hours a day as it was in the media. Was he like that when you first met him?
Right.
Always trying to promote himself?
I think secretly underneath, I used to joke he never met a microphone he didn't love. I mean, it's really, here's the problem with doctors. They all, in the hospital, they're the king of the hospital. And they're the guy who's everybody's just bowing down to. So their egos are such that they think that they know the answer to everything. But when they get on the radio or in television, I'm the doctor. They're merely a component of the formula. They're like the nurse. And the thing is that the doctor, Drew would still be doing Loveline. He'd still have a huge career instead of failing like he has now, if he would just give the medical advice. That's what people want. When the problem gets crazy, let him come in and give the advice. It's for him to do his own show would be for me to like get a surgeon's scalpel and go into the operating room and think I could, dissect an aorta or something of that nature. He's merely a component. He should be giving medical advice, nothing more, and he'd be fine. But his ego is always a problem. But I don't think it's just him. I think it's a lot of doctors when they get on the air. I mean, look at Dr. Oz.
Yeah.
Name me a doctor that's not obnoxious.
I can't. And let me tell you something. I used to be in the beeper and cellular phone business way back when they still had beepers. I know. All right. When cell phones are just first coming out. The worst client.
You must have made a fortune doing that.
Dude, you know what, man? I've made and lost several fortunes, okay? I was the first guy to go into a mall and sell beepers and cell phones from a kiosk in a mall. Now you see them selling cases and phones in every single mall across the country. But the worst customers were doctors because they were so difficult to deal with. They thought they were so important. They couldn't understand the simple instructions. They were like simple-minded. They couldn't even understand the simplest things. And they were bad paying their bills, too. They were always late with their bills. So I always have a...
Doctors?
Yes. Late paying their bills. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, and very couldn't understand simple directions either. So I'm never a big fan of doctors. But now so Loveline was at the peak of its power, at the height of its popularity, when you got fired because of this incident where you sent 300 people to another host's house.
Listen, it's not like I can wave a magic wand and get 300 people to go somewhere. It was that the Loveline in the early 90s when I got fired was a groundbreaking show. It was one day a week for the first 7 years, and then on Valentine's Day in 1992, we went 5 days a week. We started in 83, so literally we were on for that many years before we went 5 days a week. And it went to number one when we went to 5 days a week, just because the ratings were so big from the one day a week show. And I sent I told people to meet me at the station. That's another long story. But basically what happened was on my birthday in 1993, the morning show, Kevin and Bean, who are still on the air 24 years later, they decided to break into my house and have Michael, the maintenance man, their feature reporter, in my bedroom live on the radio at 6:30 in the morning. And so wishing me a happy birthday and basically fucking with me. And, so I went along with it. And, I joked around. But in the back of my head, as soon as we hung up, I said, okay, motherfucker.
Oh, wait, we can't curse on the air, though, okay?
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's
Wait,
okay.
why? You're not regular radio.
Well, no, but when then
Are
we
you?
have iHeart and stuff. Yeah, we are on some AM FM stations too, but also iHeart. We have to market adult content. Then half the people listen to it. It messes everything up. Yeah.
Okay. My apologies. I will keep it uncursed.
You could do it.
Yeah. Are you sure?
I think so.
But anyway, so they broke into my house, and I thought, okay, mofo, the master's going to show you how to do a prank. So when I went on Loveline that night, I had my producer find out where Bean lived, because he broke into my house, and I said, I'm going to have my birthday party at the celebrity's home, and the celebrity will be so happy to have all of you listeners join me for my birthday party. But meet me at the station, and we'll caravan to the celebrity's home. And the celebrity was Bean of Kevin and Bean. So 300 people met me at the station around 11:30 at night when we were live on the air, and they caravanned to the middle of Hollywood to Bean's house. Nobody showed up there, but they just followed me. Rodney on the Rock was there too. Rodney, who did his last show last night on Sunday night. He showed up. We had 2 birthday cakes, and 300 people knocked on Bean's door. And that's how I lost my job. What a way to go, right?
Well, how come, since he did the same thing to you, pretty much, he showed up at your door, and you showed up at his door, you had some people with you, but why did they fire you and not him?
Because they said that he said he complained like a little baby that he had to move because everybody knew where he lived. This is before social media, by the way. This is like 1993. And so he complained about that, whereas in his case, he said he only had one person break into my house. But K-Rock was a station that was built on people playing pranks on each other. I mean, it happened all the time. Everybody screwed around with everybody else. And so, you just sucked it up, and it was radio. It was fun. So anyway, yeah, so that's what happened. He didn't have anything happen to him for breaking into my place. But I think underlying the whole thing was the fact that the new management of K-Rock at the time had handpicked Kevin and Bean to be the big guys at the station. And they were struggling at that time, too, really struggling. They tried to get Mark and Brian. They couldn't get them, so they got 2 other white dudes, in this case talentless, not K-Rock, still not K-Rock, and put them on the air hoping they'd be Mark and Brian. And so they were getting terrible ratings then, and Loveline was carrying the whole station because we were the first #1 show that K-Rock ever had, and the only #1 show overall that K-Rock ever had. So that's how I lost my gig. I was suspended 2 days later. I had 16 months remaining in my contract for $180,000 a year back in 1993, and Mel Karmazon, who was the former head of CBS, he paid me off, and I couldn't work any other station. I would have been hired by 5 stations in L.A. if I could have gotten another job, but I didn't. And to be honest with you, it ended up chilling my career, and I've suffered ever since. And it's tough, I got to tell you. That's why when I ran on Facebook and everything, imagine if you love something so much. It wasn't the money, it wasn't the fame, it wasn't any of the frills. It was just the love of doing shows and doing them at a high level, and the excitement and wonderful quality of knowing you're doing something remarkable. You just lose the thing you love most doing, and you can't ever do it again the way you did. And then your best friend, the doctor, basically throws you over the waterfall, doesn't stand by his best friend, even though you introduced him to his wife also, who was, by the way, another creation of mine, the K-Rock Bikini Girl. She was a head K-Rock Bikini Girl. So my brain basically created Drew's life. I got him on Loveline, and then his wife was the head K-Rock Bikini Girl. So, but that's the whole thing, not being able to do what you love doing. People don't understand that. My parents don't understand. I've had tough times with them. They think I should be able to get over it. Everybody does. Nobody wants to hear people complain. I can understand that, but it's very, very difficult to not be able to do what you love doing.
I can understand.
And that's
it is your creation. It's something. It's an art. It's a craft. And like with myself, I get to talk to the most interesting people in the world, and I seek them out. They're not going to want to talk to me otherwise, you know what I mean? You're annoying them otherwise. But if you can invite them on the show, you get to talk to them, you get to meet them off the air and stuff like that, you become friendly with people. It's so rewarding on so many different levels. So now, but Drew...
Well, and I think too that, when it comes to interviews, I don't think you should be like, okay, I'm only going to interview with NBC, or I'm only going to interview with the biggest things, because you should do all the interviews. You never know who's going to be big or not big, and I think it's also it's good to not prejudge or not be elitist, and this is something I will do. If I ever have a major career again, I promise you I will do, the small online interviews and things like that. I'll just do it because I think it's good to do things like that, to be honest with you.
I totally agree with you. And even just recently, I had on Mark Ebner on the show a couple of times, and he said that he got this big TV gig from being heard on my show. So, I think we all work together, we all help each other out. We're all in this mess together, But now,
hey, listen, thanks.
Yeah.
Right now, you're the only person that wants to interview me, though, to be honest with you.
Well, let me tell you something.
Rodney's got, did his last show, and he got so many, write-ups and everything. Good for him. I rarely get asked to do an interview. Honestly, I went from, when I was fired, I would do gigs at Sweats and Surf that year where I had my clothing line Poorwear, and I would give away some CDs. But I remember going to 10 Sweats and Surfs over 2 days, and at some of the locations in malls, I would have 1,000 people show up to see me for an hour, selling my clothing and giving away free CDs. 1,000 people would show up. Now the only people that show up are the bill collectors.
But you did kind of land on your feet, because you still live on the beach, right?
Well, yeah. I live in a studio apartment. That's one. It's a house that has a downstairs and an upstairs with millennials living there that are doing really well, and in the internet security and, big, IT jobs and things like that. And my thing is just in the bottom, a little hole in the wall. My dad's been there, and he thinks it's horrible where I live. He really says, if I could, I would buy you homes on both coasts and things like that. So no, it's not like I'm just cleaning up, for sure. I go from month to month, paycheck to paycheck, probably like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Just, hustling any way I can.
I hear you, man. Let me tell you. But now, you had tried some...
a lot of people, that's the way it is these days in America. Everybody's got to hustle for a buck. But at the same time, you could still make it big. I don't not believe in the country. I do believe in the country. And there's still opportunity, and you never know when it's going to hit you. Seriously, you could be struggling for a while. You've seen it. You said you've made and lost fortunes. I have too, and you can make another fortune, or you can, maybe, your show will explode. You just don't know it. Look, when Obama was president, remember he went on that comedian's podcast, and that guy, he banked off that big time.
Yeah, anything in entertainment, you're right, it can go viral. It can take off like crazy, and you could be a star overnight. You could be a sensation, What about after you got kicked off of Loveline, then Drew went on? Is that when he picked up Adam Carolla?
Yeah, well, he kept doing the show. He said if I was suspended more than 2 weeks, he would stand by me. And then he made some lame excuse. If I leave, they're going to sue me and take my house. They're going to sue him for not doing the show? Okay, right. So he made a critical decision to betray his best friend, who was his best man in the wedding, or one of his ushers and introduced him to his wife.
Really?
And so we never talked again after the 2-week period went by, and he decided not to stand by me. He was going to keep doing Loveline, even though we were on the air for over a year before he was even on the show. And then, the way he made it look down the road, it was like I never existed, if you've noticed. And Carolla was picked by the station. He was doing mornings with Kevin and Bean. But Loveline had a formula, what's your love problem? It's friends talking to friends, and then the doctor's there to give the medical opinion. So, no matter who the host is, you can't screw it up. And so, this guy with the worst voice on the earth, who's terrible on radio, who hasn't done another radio show since, he does a podcast, but if he was that good, he'd be on regular radio. And he's just not, and his voice is irritating. And so he got the gig, and then I guess some people loved him, but again, like I said, it's the formula. And so he basically parlayed his entire career off me, and we've never met. But now he's doing a documentary, and all the jocks are falling in line, a K-Rock documentary, and I'm not falling in line until I get compensated. And people are, listen, you got to let go. I'm going, what? Carolla did my show. K-Rock made millions off Loveline. You think I want to do their documentary? Are they going to tell my story? Right. So I may do I'm doing a documentary on my own if I can get my syndicator to hook me up with a network deal, which she's doing. I've got a syndicator that's helped me with this TV show called Poor Man's Bikini Beach. That's been paying my bills basically for several years. That gets international deals, and so that's an interesting thing. So I've never met Carolla. He's burned me. How can a guy burn me? He took my show. And
I had no idea though that you were the best man at Dr. Drew's wedding.
Yeah, we were best friends.
I had no idea that you guys were that close. Now, have you talked to him since?
No, not since 2 weeks after he betrayed me. We have not talked. And then he said I was stalking him, which is ridiculous. Why would I stalk him? He and his wife tried to justify ripping off the show in every which way they can. At the end of the day, they could say I'm a horrible human being, and a lot of people have. They can say, look, you have a bad attitude, you treated people, blah, 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 blah. Whatever they want to say, you ripped off the show. Hey, you guys had to be bootleggers and steal a guy's show and his livelihood. You couldn't come up with your own concept. And no matter what kind of person people think I am, they stole the show. They plain and outright stole the show, and then they ruined it. That's why I'm hoping I can do it again in September, because I got a great doctor, and I really believe it'll be terrific. I know it will be. So we'll see. You don't ever know, but
how old are you now?
It's just, how old am I?
Yeah.
I'm 29.
29. Okay, you look great. Okay.
Times 4.
Okay. Because I'm wondering, can you still give the same?
Listen, I'm not. I'm old, but I'm not really old. Okay. I'm not. I'm not retirement yet. I'm not close to that, but I'm not 18.
Okay, I'm 55.
You know what's weird about radio though?
Yeah.
Look how old Vin Scully was when he retired. The Dodgers announcer, one of my broadcasting heroes, just tremendous on. He was 89 when he retired last year.
Get out of here. Hey, how old is Bingenheimer?
89.
Bingenheimer got to be like 89,
Bingenheimer,
right?
He's 69.
69, really? That's 60. All?
He's 69.
Well, you've been saying Loveline.
By the way, the sound in the background, I'm heating up coffee. Okay. I have to drink coffee super hot, so I put it in the microwave. That's what you're hearing.
But my question is, okay, because I'm 55, right? And can you still give that kind of dating advice, at our age? You know what I mean? I know you're 29.
Yeah,
but
why
you think
why
so?
not?
Okay.
Why not? I've got the plumbing. Okay. So you reach a certain age and you know nothing? Please.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think I know a lot more about women now than I did at 29. That's for sure.
Well, you can give the advice at any age, and they can, at the end of the day, people, you can tell somebody a million times, dump her, and the person's going to keep her. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's just, I mean, we had, when I was doing the show before, we had Dr. Timothy Leary on, the guy who invented acid, and he was probably in his 60s. He was on there. We had young, we had old. I mean, Phyllis Diller was probably 65 when she was on, and she was hilarious because she ended up hanging up on us during that Drano incident. So, I mean, the great thing about the show is everybody's got an opinion, and it's really about the guests who are on the show. And as far as my age and everything, it's like Vin Scully was the best broadcaster in baseball. I am the top alternative radio personality in the country. It doesn't matter how old I am. I mean, that's just the way my DNA is. You can tell by talking to me for 20 minutes, right? I mean, am I like everybody else? Come on.
And you're definitely an interesting guy. You're a lot of fun too. Let me ask you a question though, a love line type question.
And you know what? Yeah. That's the key to the whole thing is fun. The K-Rock's got to be fun again, and they've got to be really adventurous, and they got to be as creative as can be and take all kinds of chances. That'll bring K-Rock back. People want that in radio. That'll bring radio back. People say, radio's dead. It's not dead. It's corporate. What do you mean it's dead? More people listen to mainstream radio still than more people listen on the Internet, but there's a billion choices. But if you look at mainstream, it's more concentrated with a higher audience because there's less numbers on the dial. And sure, we all listen to all kinds of different stuff, but when you're in your car, there's still people tuning into regular radio, a lot of people. And so it's just the content is the problem.
Hey, what about something like Sirius XM? You ever contact them about carrying your show? That would be perfect for you.
Yeah.
They don't pay.
Yeah, they turn me down. They've turned me down. They won't put me on. I became really good friends with Howard Stern's former program director, vice president of Sirius, Tim Sabian. He would take me out for sushi once a month, and I'm in New York right now, and I would go in there begging him to let me do just a tryout, a sample show, and he would never put me on the air on Sirius, not even for a tryout, if you can imagine. Knowing that he even did his own version of Love Line with a bunch of guys with New York accents. It sounded horrible. And so, and we're good friends. He wouldn't put me on. And Sirius will not put me on. Mm. So that's a dead end there.
Let me ask you a Love Line type question, though. Have you heard of this new phenomenon? I'm going to interview these guys during this week. It's called Men Going Their Own Way, MGTOW.
No, I haven't heard of it. What is it?
It's this weirdest thing, man. It's this new thing. It's mostly started on the internet, like on Reddit and Vote and all those kind of weird internet social media channels. And it's called MGTOW, men who give up relationships with women. Except some of them will do prostitutes. Yeah, I know. Some of them will go with prostitutes. And some of them, they call them monks. They no sex at all. And they're going their own way because they don't like feminism. Women are evil now because of feminism and stuff like that. And they're just bitter. A lot of Trump supporters. It's a lot associated with Trump people in this group. How ironic. You got Trump wants to grab by the pee, right? Got the men want to go their own way. What do you make of something like that? If I were to call into Love Line and say to you, I'm considering joining this movement.
You know what? I think there's something to it, to be honest with you, because I think women are intimidating now. They really are. I mean, if you breathe the wrong way, you're going to get... I mean, look at the workplace. I'm not saying that there aren't sexual harassment situations in the workplace. Of course there are. But there's also people... If you ask a woman out on a date and you work with her, you're going to get fired. I mean, that's horrible. Suppose you ask her out and she goes, you know what? No, I'm not. And then you let it go. Even if it's just one simple question, you can get a sexual harassment lawsuit or fired, and then maybe you're going to have your name smeared, or you go out with a woman and this happens or that happens. I think it's intimidating. As a guy, I can see how guys are that way. It's intimidating. You know, people make mistakes in relationships. That's the way relationships are. Your emotions are involved. But to get branded, and I have, you know, I love strong women. My mom is an original women's liber. She writes books. Even to this very day, she's, you know, just wrote her 10th book, and she's an art historian, a PhD in art history. She's brilliant. But I mean, I love women who have big careers, but I think it's scary in a way, don't you? I mean, it's. I can see how that is, can't you?
Yes, I know exactly. And also today with social media, the way people are more distant from each other. They have less social interaction in the street and on the supermarket and at the bar because everyone's staring at their phones all day long like a bunch of weirdos. I don't even carry one of those things.
Let me ask you something. I bet you don't have a girlfriend, right?
Well, it's well, I'm seeing somebody, but we're not exclusive boyfriend girlfriend right now.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
But what was I going to say to you? This is what I think is weird. Do you text ever?
No, you know what? I don't carry a phone. I don't like to carry a cell phone around with me because, like I said, I was in the cell phone business way back in the 80s and the 90s. So I don't want to be, you know, I had like unlimited minutes, you know, for many, many years. So I don't carry a phone, but I will text on the computer. If I'm home, I'll use my computer to text back and forth with someone on their phone.
Okay, but what I think is interesting is women that I talk to now, you don't even call them anymore. It's just text.
Right.
I mean, you know, eventually you'll get together. Like one woman I'm going to see on Wednesday. I met her once, and then I had coffee with her, and then our entire relationship, which, you know, I mean, there was nothing anyway, but all we've done is text ever since for the last week and a half, 2 weeks. Not even call me or anything like that. It's just been text.
It's so bizarre. And even, you know, a girl give you a number, she says, text me. Okay, so you text them back and forth. Everything's going great. And you can call her up, and she won't answer the phone.
Right.
They don't want to talk on the phone. You know, it's...
right. And so... I mean, it's insane, dude.
It's a whole different world.
But I mean, I understand it. But it's so funny because with social media and also just walk down the street. How many people aren't looking at their phone, doing their thing 24/7? Everywhere.
Yeah, it's not good for us. It's people are becoming more isolated from each other in social settings, you know, and it's very.
How many calls do you get a day? Now, listen, I may not get any because I'm a loser as far as my career these days, but I don't think people get phone calls hardly at all anymore, do they?
Yeah, I still get a lot of phone calls. I get a million phone calls,
Thanks, Ed.
Yeah, but I don't. But you know, I run a business. You know, I have a business. You know, and I got the show, and then you got the listeners, and then you got the relatives.
But they don't text you. They actually call you.
Yeah, because if you want to text me, you got to text. You got to know my text app on my computer. Okay, if they give me their number and I text them, yeah, and the computer has to be on. It has to be on in a certain way. The first method to reach me is not text. You have to call my 800 number, and I get an email notification if I don't answer the phone. And yeah. But
do people still get a lot of calls though, or am I like the exception?
No, I know that a lot of people, especially socially, business-wise, yeah, I think people still make a lot of phone calls. But socially, women don't like, or even friends, they don't like you to call them up. They want you to text them or send an email.
Right.
You know? And then you email them back and forth and I'll just say, listen, let's just get on the phone real quick, you know, instead of typing back and forth all day long. But a lot of people.
It was even weird. It was even weird today. Okay, before I talk to you, I'm in this big apartment building on the Upper West Side in New York, and so I'm riding down the elevator, and a very attractive woman gets on the elevator and says, "I just moved in." And we were talking, and she had, you know, her iPhone with, you know, her little ear things. What are they called?
Earbuds.
Buds, right.
Yeah,
she had her little buds in there and started talking. Goes, "I just moved in." And what was weird, I was walking the subway, so there were two streets, one on either side of the apartment building, and she goes one way, I go the other, and then I see her getting on the subway. On the same subway car, I'm sitting opposite her, and she doesn't even look at me after talking to me. And I didn't want to say a thing because I thought, God, man, maybe she'll think I'm stalking her. And I'm not. I had to get on the same subway anyway.
Right.
But that went through my head. So I didn't talk to her at all in the subway.
You know, it's amazing because 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that never would have happened. You would have saw them again. You would have said, hey, how are you? But now there's this whole stalking issue. I remember when I was a kid growing up in the Bronx, and we lived in a big, giant building on Crows Avenue. It was like 21 stories big. So my mother knew all the other parents, all the other families in the building. You knew all the kids in the building. Anywhere you went shopping, you went to the butcher shop, the fish market, you saw people that were your neighbors and friends and people you see every day, and you had big, long conversations with them. You know what I mean? That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah,
it's gone.
But what's funny is that once you get in a relationship with a woman, then it all changes. Then it gets heavier, and I mean, I don't know. I find women are very high maintenance. I think that you have to constantly treat them as divas. And you've got to really put in the time and make sure you treat them right, or and then if things go really wrong, there can be all kinds of legal ramifications, this or that or the next thing. I mean, you're right. I can see how these guys are not wanting to. You should have those guys on your show for sure. That sounds like a really good guess.
I know. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, because it's just a whole new phenomenon. I'm just wondering how much time I should give them. I don't know if they're going to fill 2 hours with that, because you never know.
Well, you know what you should do? You should just feel it out. I mean, it might be really good.
Yeah.
It might be so weird that it's great.
Now,
but
Now, just recently, you had a podcast going there for a while. How'd that go? With subscriptions, $10 a month?
Yeah, wow. You've been following me.
Oh, yeah.
Were you one of my subscribers?
No. Back at that time, especially, I was dead broke. I was going through my divorce and custody thing. I was barely able to afford ramen noodles. It was a treat for me, No,
you didn't miss it. You didn't miss anything.
Yeah. And then after that, you were on KCAA. You went back on KCAA, right?
Yes, a station with a 0 rating.
Oh, really? Because I was thinking about going on
rating.
It has a big coverage, though.
Yeah, I mean, they had big coverage, but they had a 0 rating.
Really?
It was amazing. Yeah, honestly, it was a 0. It was a hash mark, if you know radio terminology. So that was a problem. The only thing I maybe screwed up with is when I first went to New York, we were going to do a syndicated show, and I went to Occupy Wall Street. I should have done a live show. I think I kind of screwed up because we were on a syndicator called Genesis Communications Network, and they syndicate Alex Jones.
Right.
But the thing is that the KCAA then put me on. I was only on their one station. We spent all this money thinking we'd get a network of stations, didn't get one other station other than KCAA, and then KCAA put me on at night, and at night, as soon as it gets dark, they power down to 100 watts, so then the station only reached to the edge of San Bernardino, so it was just, they only could listen online, and eventually it all fell apart, and then I was in New York without a gig. I thought I'd go to New York and it'd be easier to get guests, but then I would have never gone to New York if I hadn't done that. But, yeah, so they had a 0 rating. And then most recently, I was on this station in Anaheim where the Angels radio station, KLA, and they only had a 0.1. I mean, their programming is terrible. They only have one local show, and it's with a guy who used to do Blind Date. You know Roger Lodge?
Yeah. I kind of like him.
He was great on Blind Date.
Yeah.
Absolutely. On TV, he was great. On radio, he's horrible.
Oh, no, yeah?
He goes, I'm Roger Lodge.
And what kind of show does he do?
A sports show, because it's a sports station. They play ESPN programming, and It's all the Artie Moreno, the owner of the Angels, owns the station, so it's all about the Angels, and the Angels suck. So I went on with Peter Dills. We did a thing called Dining with Dills and Poorman, he's Elmer Dills' son. Elmer Dills is a big restaurant critic in L.A.
Okay.
And so we did it for about 6 or 8 months, just once a week, and I said, look, we need to be on 5 days a week. They need another local show. We can go to bars afterwards, promote the Angels. And so the sales guy there, Peter Dills had to pay the guy $400 a week to be on the air. And he said he would talk to management, and they were just screwing us around. In the end, Peter Dills got mad at me because I said, I just don't want to do it unless we go 5 days a week and become a regular program, because nobody's listening. And if you're a paid program on radio, it's the worst.
Yeah. It's a tough gig, man. We're running out of time. I know you wanted to talk about Rodney Bingenheimer and how he got screwed over there at K-Rock.
No, I don't need to talk about that. I'll talk about whatever you want.
Well, what do you want to leave us with then? We only got about 10 minutes left.
Really? How long have we been talking?
50 minutes.
Really? How long did you need me for? An hour?
We had 60 minutes, yeah.
Wow, I'm glad I made the grade. I hope I do better than the guys who won't go out with women.
I'll ask them when I have them on. I'll ask them about you. How's that? This guy Poorman.
Ask them if they've ever heard of me. Tell them he was at one time was such a great DJ who's completely lost it. I had to talk to him for an hour and just think of all kinds of shit. All kinds of SH to say.
Hey, for a while there, weren't you complaining that you hadn't had any sex since like 2003?
Yeah, I still haven't. I haven't had sex in like 14 years. It's horrible. I think I'm like a guy in. It's like a guy who's in the desert without a drink. I think women can just glean the desperado. And so, yeah, I haven't had sex since 2003. Isn't that horrible?
That is horrible. But now, but you still think
I don't know how to cure it. Honestly, I don't. If I could cure it, I'd cure it.
Well, like these guys,
listen,
the men going their own way. Have you ever thought of prostitutes and that kind of thing?
No,
it's just no fun, right?
The diseases.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay for it.
Yeah. Plus, it's no fun. It's just. Do you wonder where a guy like Charlie Sheen always has to go with them? Always has to pay these women to go with him, and doesn't consider,
I think it's because Charlie Sheen likes that.
Yeah.
I mean, he loves hookers and prostitutes and strippers and paying for it. I think he likes that.
Yeah.
I mean, some guys do. I mean, my buddy who I talked to just before you called me, he's Australian, and he was telling me how proud he was of his friend and his son, and the friend's son. It was his friend and his friend's son. They say, yeah, because my friend said he was having troubles with his daughter. She won't talk to him. I said, well, I think if it's a father-son thing, it's a different situation, because I have a son who I get along with great, and he's really a successful person despite his dad. But what's interesting is my Australian friend goes, Poorman, it's so great. I've got a friend who's really close to his son too. You know what they did recently? It's just great. They went to Thailand together, and they both did the same girl at the same time.
Oh my God!
And I'm going, ugh. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Well, how old was the son? Like adult son, or
Yeah, he was an adult son, but I mean, come on, would you have sex with the same woman naked with your son side by side?
Oh no! You know what? I didn't even catch you saying that part. I was just thinking about both going with the same woman, one after another. That would be bad enough.
No, they both went they were in Thailand.
Oh yeah. No.
Hiring a prostitute. Who knows how old she was? The father and son did her together at the same time.
Yeah, that's disgusting. Who needs that, man? That's outrageous.
Right. I told my friend, I go, God, that sounds awful. Can you imagine me and my son? Hey, let's go do the same woman. I mean, just what I want to do, be naked with my son doing a woman.
No, that's not a healthy relationship with you. That's not a good father-son relationship. You wouldn't find out on the courtship of Eddie's father. Not even on their most riskiest episode.
God.
Yeah. Oh my God. Jim Poorman, thank you so much, brother.
You're gonna leave it on that. You're gonna leave it at that, aren't you?
Well, you know what? I think we did. We hit our peak there. I think we had our moment. The father and son courtship.
That's what people are going to remember this interview for. Is like that father son in Thailand. Thanks a lot, Ed.
Well, at least it didn't get worse. It could have gotten worse. Okay, we could have gone downhill from there. Jim Poorman, listen.
Hey, listen. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on, dude. I really appreciate it, honestly. I wish you all the success with your show.
No, a lot of fun, man. And if you ever got anything you want to promote, next thing coming up, give me a call. I'll put you right on the air.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Okay, take care, buddy.
Thank you, Jim. Bye. There you had Jim Poorman Trenton. And I don't know if his books are still available on that. I don't know. Anyway. But he's the guy, they called him Poor Man because he used to write those books, The Poor Man's Guide to Eating in L.A., those famous books that were famous a long time ago. So Jim Poorman Trenton, famous, really, really, really funny guy. If you follow him on Twitter, I don't know what he does on Twitter, but his Facebook rants were just so hysterical, man. You got to follow him on Facebook, Jim Poorman Trenton on Facebook. Thank you so much, Jim Trenton. And now a word from our sponsors. Did you know that 30% of all people on online dating websites and personal ads are either married or in a monogamous relationship? 30%. If you suspect that your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend may be cheating online, go to emailrevealer.com. On our online infidelity investigation. You give us their email address, and we can trace it back to online personal ads, dating sites, and social networks. We can even expand the investigation and find them cheating on escort service sites or even porn sites if they're registered to porn sites and swinger sites. So check out emailrevealer.com if you suspect your spouse is cheating, and check out our online infidelity investigation. William Ramsey is a producer here at the Opperman Report, and he's just come out with a new book, Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. Now, he just sent me a copy of this book. Oh, boy, it's about 2 inches thick, and there's a chapter on just about everybody in this book that you can imagine. The Beatles, and Jack Parsons, everybody's in here. It's incredible. And I definitely recommend this book. There's a bunch of pictures in here, too, of all these people and different chapters and information. Anton LaVey and people I've never heard of, too. There's a whole bunch in here. JFC Fuller. I don't know who he is. But it's great stuff by our producer here, William Ramsey. So check out Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. You can find it on Amazon.com, or you could find it in the Opperman Report.com bookstore. We have an urgent bulletin. It seems that the group Strawman is still on the loose. It has been confirmed that Strawman are Canadian, okay, and that authorities are asking people to stay indoors, lock your doors and windows until this group can be dealt with. You could find more information about this group of Canadians, at strawmanmusic.com. You can have your ad played here. Okay, we're looking for sponsors. Okay, in fact, we desperately need sponsors right now to take this show to the next level. So you can have your ad played here, read live, like I'm doing now, so artfully. Or we can even work up a little jingle for you with some music and stuff like that and play it here. You have no idea how inexpensive it would be to have your ad played on the Opperman Report on 7 stations live Friday night and another 7 stations live on Saturday night, plus replayed every day of the week on different stations, and then archived on YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and all different kinds of podcasts, Pod This and Podbean, all different kinds of places who archive the show for us. And on those archives, your ad would play indefinitely, forever. You also get a little banner on OppermanReport.com. You get a mention on the air. You get a little interview on the air, and all kinds of fun stuff if you sponsor Opperman Report. We have an opportunity to get this show on a major AM/FM station in California. We've been approved. So if you want to sponsor us into that, so incredibly inexpensive that your ad would be heard by a the range covers 5 million people in population where your ad would be broadcast, and all these other stations would be thrown in for free. So really affordable prices to sponsor OppermanReport.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You can get a copy of that book at emailrevealer.com, or you can get a copy of that book now. It's back up on Amazon.com. How to Become a Successful Private Investigator by Ed Opperman. And this book has been updated a little bit from the previous book that we had that was available to our wonderful listeners.